I'm Dianne Trussell from Australia, and I'm here to put forth a proposal that is actually very ancient but is very new, and that is that we reunite modern science with the Ageless Wisdom teachings. Now, the Ageless Wisdom, it goes back into antiquity and is current now, therefore the term ageless, and it's a systematized science of experimentation, observation and recording, using intuition, thought, experience, and all the things that are complementary with modern science. And there's a lot of overlap in the results of the two different realms of study. So within the ancient wisdom teachings, there are many answers to hard problems and explanatory gaps that modern science is struggling with in consciousness studies, psychology, biology, and physics. And some of those are just sitting there in the Ageless Wisdom waiting to be taken up. So some of the useful tenets that are in the Ageless Wisdom teachings, which science could pick up and which overlap, is the underlying oneness and connectedness of everything, which we've come to with quantum physics also. The primacy, ubiquity, entanglement, and non-locality displayed by consciousness. And you'll find that all through the Ageless Wisdom. Consciousness is energy-like effects in the sense that it can transfer and move and produce motion and so on. That consciousness underlies all human thought and activity, including all scientific research. Therefore, everything depends upon consciousness. And if consciousness is a ubiquitous field or that interacts with matter and mind and so on, then it's very relevant to scientific research. Another construct is that the universe is multidimensional and there are multiple universes, which also interfaces with some of the modern cosmological theories and ideas. The AWT has a comprehensive cosmogenesis of cosmology, so a complete system of how the cosmos arose and how it functions. And that is not dependent upon just physical matter. It's actually codependent with consciousness. Another one is that humans are more than a physical body, and a lot of people on the frontiers of science are coming to accept that that's the case now. That everything is energy and everything is caused by energy. And there are many more, but these are very useful things that we can have a look at in conjunction with modern science. Here's a diagram that gives a bit of an idea of how we can blend those things. So if you have a look at the field here, absolute infinite causeless cause is considered by the Ageless Wisdom to be the foundation of everything. It predates the Big Bang or whatever the origin of the universe is. That there's a layer called will or universal mind of consciousness, which is encompasses everything, and that within all of that there are layers or levels, vibrational levels, dimensions, implicate orders, universes, starting with that rarefied formlessness and proceeding all the way down through the levels to the dense physical, which is basically around here. And all of those levels impact everything like the human body, physics and biophysics, quantum physics, psychology, neuroscience, all being operated on multiple levels of reality. And where they overlap is where we can find experience, meditation, parapsychology, psychophysiology, anomalies, subtle bodies, altered states, all that kind of thing. So they cease to be weird woo-woo stuff and start to become the product of a blended science with a particular system and method. So some hypotheses arise as a result of blending the Ageless Wisdom with modern science. And one is that consciousness is present on many coexistent levels. So for example, the quantum field plus Bohm's many levels of implicate order. Hypothesis 2 is that consciousness is not solely generated within the organic body, that it actually enters and distributes to tissues all throughout the body, like could be through microtubules or some other physical substrate, but that it's entering the body from a field of some kind. In hypothesis 3, that there are just two forms of consciousness, and every moment is either or situation. It's either form 1 or form 2, and all the flavors of consciousness fit into either of those forms. Now, form 1 is the states of harmony, oneness, stillness, detachment, and no self that the contemplative and meditative traditions aspire to attain so they can be in a more evolved, higher divine state of being and to be aligned or attuned to the one source, which can be called God. This form is characteristic of the soul, and its features are divine fire, mind of God, universal mind. Those, or its nature, can be considered to be those things. Now, this form seems to correspond with adherence to baseline randomness of the quantum field sensitive random event generator, and I'll get onto that a little bit when we talk about evidence. Now, form 2 is states of disharmony, disequilibrium, individualism, separation, depression, all kinds of emotions, attachment. Basically, all the things that are disturbing and separating that the contemplative and meditative traditions aspire to let go of, because they block our access to the oneness and the universal mind. They're an unstable state that's characteristic of what the Ageless Wisdom terms the human spirit as opposed to the divine spirit. And their nature is in the form of prana or chi, astral energy, all those kinds of things, the basic life force energy. And this form seems to correspond with deviations away from the baseline randomness of the reg. And because it's the basic life force energy, it's not really appropriate as the use of our intelligence. It's for, biology, maintaining bodies and the sort of lowest forms of intelligence. But by our nature, we are designed to operate with the fiery, the state of harmony of form number 1. Hypothesis 4 is that the whole physical body is the mind. And therefore the whole physical body is receiving the two energies producing consciousness, which therefore produces the movements and all the characteristic attributes of consciousness through the whole physical body. And we have been overemphasizing the brain, and so some of the modern work in interoception is starting to reveal that, yes, the whole body is more likely to be the conscious unit. Hypothesis 5 is that there's non-local entanglement of consciousness between people. And if we have this quantum field and consciousness coming from the outside through a body undergoes some modification, its interaction with the matter and energy of the body, and then is retransmitted, will then therefore be able to affect another body. And the new science of hyperscanning, where they can synchronize more than one person's EEG in the absence of any sensory connection, is beginning to show that consciousness can be transmissible or shared by some kind of resonance or other phenomenon. Hypothesis 6 is that the random event generator's randomness is not truly random in the sense of disordered or meaningless. And it could be because when you think of the universe, it's constantly expanding. All of the bodies in the universe are moving relation to each other, so the configurations of gravity and emissions and light are constantly changing. There's never a moment the same. And so the randomness could actually be a kind of order. So some of the evidence and theories, and when we look at hypothesis 1, consciousness is present on many coexistent levels. That's quite well explained by Bohm in Implicate Orders, if you read his Implicate Orders in the context of consciousness. And one of the reasons I'm focusing on consciousness is because it is the foundation of all human thought, activity and experimentation and so on. Applies to all of the sciences. So for hypothesis 2, the fact that the random event generator is responding to shiftings of human consciousness basically belies that it originates in the brain, that it's a thing that's going on within the human brain. Otherwise the reg would not be able to pick it up. For hypothesis 3, that there are just two forms or energies of consciousness. So when I was doing a pilot study on physiological and psychological states during meditation and running the reg device while that was happening, I was quite surprised to see that there seemed to be two kinds of energy-like influences correlated with known broad states of consciousness. One of those states or energies seems to be form 1 of stillness and detachment, and the other one was the usual kind of separation and sort of energies of emotion. So for hypothesis 4, the whole physical body is the mind. As I mentioned, there's a lot of work starting to come through now on interoception and embodied cognition. That's from the neuroscience up is starting to reveal that the whole physical body is a lot more of a conscious entity. For hypothesis 5, that there can be non-local entanglement of consciousness between people, well, I already mentioned hyperscanning, and it's early days, but there are indications that consciousness transfers between people. And if we are working with consciousness as a unified field at whatever level, then that's actually a no-brainer. So it's just a matter of doing the work to show it. Now, I mentioned about the randomness of the reg. Space is continually expanding. Every point's moving relative to every other point. So no two moments are the same. And so therefore, if you look at the universe's moments, it's an enormous string of different moments that seem to be random, that never repeat, have very much the features of like the randomness. And so if we are in a state of harmony where we're not disturbing the basic kind of machine hum of the universe, if you like, then it would correlate with the clamping of the reg trace to the baseline. Whereas if we're disturbing that, that kind of dynamic equilibrium, homeostasis, ever-changing of the universe, then we're disturbing it and we're getting a significant deviation from baseline. So in summary, I feel that there's a lot of value in this proposal of dropping all the kind of skepticism and the blocking out of anything other than the reductionist modern science, and having a serious look at including the ageless wisdom back into modern science. Thank you.